What am I saying again?
This is MPW.
MPW.
The podcast.
With your host,
Xylo Aria. Cool.
A podcast about music production
for the everyday musician,
where we learn from experienced studio engineers and each other.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the MPW Podcast. I'm your host, Xylo Aria, and today we have a very special guest, Ariane Paras. So Ariane is a life and career coach and also the founder of Olympia Coaching. And she helps artists and music professionals find clarity and direction and focus in their careers, and has had 15 years experience in the music industry and has loads of coaching hours with lots of people in different parts of the industry. So great to have you with us today, Ariane. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Hi, Xylo. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, no, great to have you. And today we're doing an episode that's a little bit different to what we usually talk about, I guess, which is sort of looking at the mental side of creating and all of the mental blocks and challenges that we go through. And, there are so many of those as a creative person, which I'm sure you hear lots about, and we will dig into that a little bit more. But I'd love to hear a bit more about your career, where you got started. It seems like, you've been working in different parts of the music business and then kind of ended up in coaching. So talk me through that a little bit and how that journey played out for you.
Yeah, so music is my first love, and I love music so much, like we all do in this industry. And I literally cannot imagine my life without music. So I worked in the industry for about 15 years, and that was amazing. I worked for labels in the UK and then as a club booker in Barcelona. And about 15 years ago, I had a spiritual awakening, and I started to be really passionate about anything to do with personal development. And I found that everything that I was learning was just really essential life skills that we all need in order to create a better life for ourselves. So I really wanted to share what I was learning and help others, and specifically people in the music industry, this industry that I love so much. So helping artists and music professionals find the confidence and the focus and the clarity that they need in order to take their career to the next level. And I have such a deep and profound admiration and respect for artists, because they gift us this incredible music that we enjoy so much. So I really wanted to help artists on their journey. And this is why I retrained as a professional life coach about 5 years ago and founded Olympia Coaching to offer coaching services to people in the music industry.
Cool. That's awesome. And it's great that you kind of pivoted from what you were doing to something that aligned with you now a bit more. And it sounds like it's been very fulfilling for you, which is great.
Yes.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, we will dig into this, and we've had a few kind of questions about different sides of the mental blocks that we've got from different artists. But one of the main things you started with as well, saying that of the fact that you love music, and it's just such a beautiful thing and brings a lot of joy to people and their lives. And as a creator as well of it, we do have that relationship with music, but sometimes it can become a love-hate relationship because you lose the fun of it and you kind of turn it into a job, and then you're kind of putting all this pressure on yourself. So do you have any thoughts on keeping the fun aspect and actually enjoying it and remembering why you do it?
Yes. So, this is something that I think most of us get caught up into, which is like we get caught up into the doing, into like the perfectionism and doing something in the hope of achieving a certain result. And especially for artists, it's really crucial that artists maintain this sense of play in order to stay creative. It's a really important part of being a creative. And what you just said before is, yeah, like going back to the why, like remember why are you doing this in the first place, right? Why did you decide to produce music? And what is it that you want to feel on a daily basis as you live your life and as you work on your music? You probably want to feel in the flow and you want to feel inspired and you want to like really enjoy this creative process that you're engaged with. So remembering why we're doing this in the first place kind of helps us like put things into perspective. And when you see yourself getting like really stressed or really overwhelmed, it's like, okay, I need to stop here. And if like I'm focusing too much on getting it to a certain outcome, I need to go back to the basics of regaining this sense of play. And especially for art, like the best ideas and any creative person will tell you this, the best creative ideas don't come from obsessively like concentrating on an issue. And for example, if we think about Einstein, who obviously is like one of the greatest scientists, but he also valued creativity. Creativity was a huge part of his work. And he said that imagination was more important than knowledge. And this is how he came to his discoveries, because he was using his imagination. So Einstein used to take like a lot of breaks in between his work to practice the violin. So he wasn't just always like buried on it, in his papers. And playing the violin was a way to kind of switch off and have these insights, these creative insights. So I think that most people who end up writing a hit will tell you that, oh, this song came really quickly to me. It was like a really painless, enjoyable process. So you want to, like go back to this idea of like producing music with this sense of playfulness and with this intention of expressing yourself, because ultimately art is also about self-expression. So go into this mindset of, I'm just going to like enjoy myself. I'm going to play. I'm going to still have a goal, and the goal may be to finish the track, because otherwise you could be like jamming for hours. And maybe my only goal is to finish the track, but I'm not going to like go about producing this track with the idea of like, I'm going to release this track and it has to be great. I'm just going to like flow and, like get into this curious mindset of a child who's always asking why, and, why am I doing this? And why not do this? And what if, getting into this sense of exploration and play.
Okay. And do you have any tips on what to do exactly to get into that zone? Is it kind of creating some sort of atmosphere, or maybe taking yourself out of some atmosphere, or, any suggestions that you have?
Yeah, so think back on maybe what works for you, like when you go about and go into your studio with this idea of like, oh, I just feel like creating today and enjoying, maybe I brought a new piece of equipment that I want to try out. So get into that mindset of, I'm here to experiment, I'm here to play. I'm still gonna have a goal, as I said, to like, maybe I want to come out of this studio session with something, but I'm going to put less pressure on myself, and I'm not going to think about the result and the outcome and how this track needs to be sounding like this, or it needs to be great, or I want to release this track on this label. So putting like less pressure on yourself. And there's also a technique that I looked this up online, and, Rick Rubin, who's like this famous music producer, used to try different things to work on the music. So one thing he did, and you probably know about this, where he would create fake constraints. So he would like give himself like limitations in order to get into that sense of like, ooh, like what can I do? For example, if let's say I only have like 30 minutes to make a song, like what can I do in 30 minutes? Or what can I do with, I don't know, like with 2 plugins? I'm just making that up because I don't know anything about music production. I don't know if you can make music with 2 plugins, but, play around, like, use like little tricks like this to get into this mindset of a child who's discovering something.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I like that actually. And yeah, definitely the limitations thing I think helps to increase creativity. And sometimes I feel like so many people get stuck with this thought of owning everything, like all of the latest plugins and all of the latest sound libraries. And then you just have way too much and then get lost in this sea of, things and then kind of not sure where to take them. But for example, there's a collective in Melbourne called the Beat Collective, and they release 2 samples every 2 weeks, and then you have to create something within the 2 weeks with those 2 samples. And I've been terrible at actually keeping it up, but there was a point where I was doing that, and it was really fun and got some really kind of nice kind of tracks from that. So yes, I think that's a great tip. So thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Mariangela. I'm from Italy but based in Germany, and this episode is brought to you by MPW membership. Did you know that all MPW members get access to monthly group catch-up calls with the rest of the MPW community? This is the perfect resource to help keep you focused on your goals and to give you support through your music production journey, no matter what stage you're at. This is a free feature for all MPW members. Take advantage of this awesome feature and so many more using the link musicproductionforwomen.com/membership.
And one thing that you mentioned as well, kind of around that, where you're looking at, this track needs to be for release or whatever. I think that in a way sort of comes down to that perfectionism thing that we talk about, or a lot of people seem to get stuck with, that this needs to be perfect, so I'm just going to kind of keep working on it and then not letting it go. So what thoughts do you have on that?
Yeah, so, perfectionism is a beast. It's a beast. And it really stems from fear. And it's usually about fear of judgment, fear of failure, because all human beings, what we want is to be loved and accepted. So, it's fair enough. We have these fears. And the thing with perfectionism is that it gets in your way, right? Because it gets in your way of finishing tracks. It gets in your way of playing tracks to other people or releasing them. So one thing you can do is to shift the focus away from yourself and away from the idea of this has to be perfect, to focusing on others instead. So focusing on like the bigger picture, what it's really about, and why you're doing this again. Like, why making music? Like, what impact do you want to have on other people with your music? This is something that I help some of my artist clients with, remembering their purpose and what is it that they want people to feel through their music. Maybe, or if you're an electronic music producer, maybe you just want to help people have a good time and release and feel good. Or maybe you want to be the channel for a certain message. So the thing you have to remember as well is that no one really pays as much as attention as you do. So I remember when I was working as a booker, I was booking electronic music artists. So it was mainly DJs, but also some live acts. And I remember, more often than not, quite a few times over the 9 years I was there, some artists would step off stage after doing a live and they would be a bit upset because they had made a mistake during the live. And I would always tell them, look, I was there the whole time. Like, no one notices. I can guarantee you that no one noticing. And also, people in a club they're there to have fun, right? They're here to enjoy themselves and have a good time. They're not there to really pay attention to everything that you're doing and judge you if you make a little mistake. Like, no one really notices. So, that's another thing with perfectionism. We think people care more than what they actually do. And there was a research as well that I would like to mention because I think it's really interesting. So it's a research that was done in a pottery class, out of all places. But I think that you can learn about the creative process. The creative process that I think can translate from one art form to another. So they researched this pottery class during one semester, and they divided the class in two groups. And the first group had to do the best piece of pottery that they could. And the second group had to produce many pieces without caring so much about how good it was. Guess which group produced the highest quality works?
The one that just had fun with it.
Yes. And the reason why is that, first of all, they produced more, so there was more output. Therefore, they had more practice, and with the repetition comes more practice and more skill. And the second reason is because, again, they didn't care so much, so they weren't being held back by that fear of judgment. So all of that led to better work. So this is something you can learn from this experiment of, okay, I'm just going to produce, I'm going to put less pressure on myself, and I'm just going to see what happens. And here you want to kind of like allow yourself the permission to suck. So give yourself the permission to suck, give yourself the permission to just play and just to enjoy the process and see what happens. And you'd be surprised.
I love that. Give yourself the permission to suck. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
And the mantra you can, I like this because it's like very short and very memorable. You can say to yourself, it's all about progress, not perfection. Because it truly is. It truly is. It's really about you growing and becoming better. It's not about you being perfect. Because, the world doesn't require you to be perfect. The world just wants you to show up and do your best and keep learning and growing.
That's another a couple of gems there as well. The world doesn't require you to be perfect. And yeah, I wonder where this started, where this crazy idea started that we need to be perfect when nothing in the world is. So yeah, I don't know how we kind of got to that. So that's all really useful. And I think a lot of people can relate to that a lot. So that's great. And another thing that I hear all the time, or I know people are doing all the time, especially when they're starting in production, is comparison to other people. That they'll be producing for maybe 2 months and be like, oh, my stuff sucks, or it doesn't sound like what's on the radio. And I'm like, you're comparing to someone who's been doing this for so long. But it's such a natural thing to do, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to compare to other industries or something where you might see things as a work in progress. But I guess everything we hear on the radio and everything is just so polished and has had so many people work on it. But we, as a single person just starting out, compare ourselves to that. So what would you say about that?
Yeah. So again, comparison is a very human tendency that we have because we live in this world of contrast and duality where we're always comparing, like good, bad, better, worse, whatever. So, and it is a trap because normally when we compare ourselves, it's always like it makes us feel less than and not good enough. And here's the thing: it's something that we all know on a cognitive level, but we really need to like integrate that. And that is that, like you just said, we are comparing things that are not comparable, right? You can't compare yourself to someone who's been doing it for however many years. And, that's not comparable. But also, we are all unique. We are all in our unique journeys. So each artist is completely unique. Each journey is completely unique. People have different priorities. They have different values. They have obviously different experience and skills and a different mindset. And there's different things you need to learn in this lifetime. So when you're comparing yourself to someone else, you're not comparing yourself fairly. And so one way to go back to you is like to go back to what you really what do you really want? Like, what is it that you want to express as an artist? And think also of like, what is it that you are willing or not willing to sacrifice for your career? Because you may admire a producer and you may admire the songs that they work on, but you have no idea about their life, like how is their health? What is the state of their relationships? Are they happy? Or are they just like feeling really, really anxious most days and feeling unhealthy and all of that? So if there is an artist that you admire, but you knew for a fact that they were feeling deeply unhappy and miserable, would you trade your life for theirs? You wouldn't, right? So you don't know how people got to where they got. So the only person you want to compare yourself is with yourself. That's the only thing that counts, is like the journey, travel. So like compare yourself with who you were and where you were at 6 months ago or 2 years ago, and see, because we tend to forget everything that we have accomplished and how we have changed. Like we always tend to compare ourselves, like you said, to the people who are better than us. We don't compare to the old version of ourselves. So you really want to ask yourself those questions regularly. When you find yourself comparing yourself, you want to say, okay, like I'm going to go back to me, and like, how is it that I am improving? How am I growing? Which skills have I learned in the last year? And, which fears did I overcome?
Yeah. No, for sure. And I like that you said, every artist is unique. So when you're comparing yourself to anyone else, you're comparing two things that are not comparable. So I think for me, that kind of helped to create a bit of a way to make sense of it, that the only thing you can ever compare yourself to is you, because that's the only thing that is comparable. Okay, so that's very interesting. So moving on to, I guess, releasing music, and now with everyone having home studios and for everyone to be able to distribute to Spotify and all of these platforms for a very, very small fee, we're just seeing a sea of music out there, and it's just so much content. And you can feel really discouraged when you've, spent so much time creating something, and then you put it out and then it gets lost in this huge space, and feel a bit like, no one cares. So, why am I doing this sort of thing? So what would you say if someone was feeling that?
So there is indeed a whole ocean of content and music and noise into the world. And as we know, it's not necessarily the best music that gets heard. Unfortunately, this is not the way it goes. So when you feel a little bit, discouraged or disappointed because you put so much work and effort into something and it doesn't get the result that you want, remember that, first of all, the artistic journey is not an easy one. It's not an easy one, right? There's a lot of competition. And if you feel that you have really done your best, then be kind to yourself. First of all, be really kind to yourself and acknowledge yourself for showing up, for all your efforts, and practice some self-love so you can go back to a place of feeling good. And then, all these setbacks on your journey, all these challenges, there are really beautiful opportunities as well to help you grow as a person, because ultimately you growing is what's gonna, you're gonna keep that forever in you, like everything that you learn throughout the process. And it's a really beautiful opportunity for you to develop patience, to develop resilience, and to develop more determination and persistence, because these are qualities that you need to sustain you in this artistic journey if you want to be there in the long term. Like I was actually talking about this with a client last week, about how it really is about the journey. It really is not about the destination, because really feel this, like the journey is so much more important than the destination. And who you become in this journey as you work towards your goal is way more important than actually reaching the goal. Because all these, everything that you are developing in the meantime, it is what is shaping you. It is what's shaping you into who you are meant to be. And everything as well is actually taking you closer to where you want to go, even if you don't see the tangible results. Like, you're always moving forward, whether you see it or not. And, as you go on this journey, this is where you develop this resilience, this emotional and mental strength. You're developing a bigger sense of trust in yourself. And this is what it's really about. So, yeah, really be gentle with yourself. Realize that you're growing, even if your music is not getting heard as much as you wish it would. And then if you know that you made the best music that you could, then maybe it's obviously the fact that it's not getting heard may have nothing to do with how good your music is and how good your producer you are. It's probably a promotion issue, or your music not reaching the right people. So you want to also see, what can you do differently? Like, can you get someone to help and maybe give you some advice about releasing your music in a different way? Is that something you need to change in your approach?
Yep. No, all good points to think about there. And another thing that, I see sometimes is just procrastination and, not finding consistency in creating and improving someone's skills. So would you have any advice on how to, get yourself on track and be able to build a bit more consistency in what you're doing?
Yeah. So I find that most artists actually need structure, right? Because they've got these beautiful creative minds, and it can be challenging for artists to stay focused, to stay consistent. And also a lot of them don't really like the ideas of a routine or of a work routine. So here you want to kind of balance what we call the masculine and feminine energies, which is nothing to do with the gender. It's really about universal energies. So the masculine is a lot about having structure, having focus, having some very clear goals. And then the feminine is much more about flowing and following the inspiration and having a sense of flow and having that space for freedom. So you want to kind of have a balance between both. And when you procrastinate, which again is a very common thing, there are quite a few reasons behind why you are procrastinating. So one of them, a big one, is distractions, because we live in an age of distractions, with mobile phones and social media. So you want to kind of protect yourself, protect your kind of having a sacred time and space for you to go into your studio and produce. Procrastination can also be linked to fears, like fear of failure, fear of things not working out. And procrastination, you procrastinate as well when you're giving yourself some excuses, right? So when you say to yourself, I'm going to try to finish that song. So one way to get over that is to kind of banish the word try from your vocabulary. Because when you say try, you're always giving yourself a way out. You're already giving yourself an option to not do it. So instead of try, you can say to yourself, I will. So instead of saying, I will try to finish this song today, you can say, I will finish this song when I put aside 30 minutes today to do this, or when I change my mindset and release any fears I have about this not sounding like I want it to sound. And accountability, of course. Accountability is a really effective way to keep on track. And I find that most artists need external accountability.
Yeah. I'm definitely a huge fan of accountability, and there was a group that I was a part of for a little while, and they were keeping each other accountable by sort of negative reinforcement of if they couldn't meet a timeline. They had to do something that they really, really didn't want to do, like, donate to a political party that they did not believe in or something like that, So I guess that's one way to do it. But I think even just telling the people in that group would have been sort of enough than kind of only telling yourself. And so big fan of that. And the try, I found that really funny, actually. It's like, when you say try, you're probably not going to do it. Like, I'll try and make it to that event, which means you definitely don't want to go.
Yeah. There's this meme with Yoda, who's like one of my heroes. And he says, do or not do, there is no try.
Yeah.
Do or do not, there is no try.
Yeah. No, that's that's a good point, actually, and a good thing to take out of your vocabulary. So I do like that. So if we have all of these mindset blocks, of course, you've given us a few things to think about. How would you start breaking through these? If you were kind of suffering from these and trying to work out what should I do next?
So I kind of see it as a 3-step process. So the first step is always awareness. So being aware, becoming aware of your current mindset, of the beliefs that you have about yourself or about your work, and realizing, okay, like, are these beliefs and these thoughts supporting and empowering me, or are they limiting me and keeping me stuck? So the first stage is awareness. And then the second stage, if you realize that these mindset issues, these blocks, these fears are not helping you, is to face the fears and the blocks. So this is best done through things like journaling, like any types of like self-reflection practices, or working with a coach as well, because we don't see our own blind spots. This is why there are blind spots. And we don't see how we are limiting ourselves. So having someone by your side who is neutral and who can act as a mirror and who can challenge you as well is really helpful. And it's going to help you really like see things and go deeper and understand what are the fears really about, what is the perfectionism or the procrastination really about, so that you can shift it. Because it's not just about facing the fear and doing it anyway and pushing through. Yes, you want to face the fear and you want to do it anyway, but it's not enough just to push through. What you want is to create a shift in your consciousness, because that's what's going to stick. So in order to create sustainable change, you need to really create your level of consciousness. So you want to do things so you can change your perspective on things, see the big picture, like learn ways to overcome all these negative voices that you have inside your head, that we all have. It's like this ongoing dialogue that we have, and sometimes we don't even know that it's there, but it's kind of like keeping us stuck. And then the third step is to then shift your mindset. So once you've became aware of what's keeping you stuck or fearful, and then you face it, you understand what it's really about, and then you decide to shift your mindset with the help of tools and practices, and really think, okay, like if I want to get there, if I want to like have the success that I want, what kind of mindset will take me there? What do I need to believe? What do I need to think? What do I need to feel? Because this will inform the actions that you take. So mindset really is at the root of everything. It's at the root of your results, because it's going to dictate how you feel, how you think, and therefore what you do. So it's something that you want to cultivate on a regular basis. Mindset is not something you do once and that's it. So you've got a new mindset and off you go. It's something you want to always up level, because there's always going to be another block or another limit that you need to break through in order to get to the next level.
Okay, yep, cool. So we've got a kind of a bit of a guide on how to go about that. So that's great. And What kind of practices or tips do you have or could you recommend for producers to up-level their mindset?
So depending on which mindset issues you struggle with. So again, like we talked about a few tips already for perfectionism, for procrastination, for avoiding comparison. Another big one is like really addressing this thought that you are not good enough, which is, again, it's like a very universal thing, but it's a complete lie because you are good enough, and you want to really define yourself as well for yourself as well. What is good enough? What is actually good enough for me, and how do I measure that, and how do I decide what's good and what's not? And another general practice that you can get into the habit of that can help with everything is to embody that version of you that is already successful, that is already great at what they do. So this confident version of you, this successful version of you, like what are they thinking? What kind of thoughts are they having? What kind of feelings do they have when they go about their day? What are they saying to themselves? Who are they having conversations with? Who are they reaching out to? What actions do they take? So you really want to kind of like channel that version of you, and you can also think of it as your higher self. So like I know that with clients, I take them through visualizations to help them connect with that version of themselves, with this higher self version, which is actually your true self, in order to really go about your day and how you work with embodying this version of yourself. And yeah, like the thing with like not being good enough is remembering that you're here to just show up in a way. It's kind of like, like thinking that it's kind of like nearly like stepping out, like getting yourself out of the way and being in service for your art, because your art wants to exist. Your songs want to be heard. They want to reach the people that they need to reach. And sometimes you may stop yourself as an artist because you think it's not good enough. However, someone somewhere wants to hear that song. And in a way, you're robbing them from your music if you don't release it because you don't think it's good enough. So it's kind of like, in a way, putting your ego aside. And when I say ego, by the way, it's like we all have an ego. Like it's not just Kanye West who has a huge ego. Like our ego self is kind of like our human self. We all have one, and we all need to work with it, but not let it run our life. So it's kind of like stepping aside, letting yourself be a channel for your art and for the music that's wanting to come through you, and who's choosing you as the best vessel or the best person to manifest this art into the 3D world. And so being in service of your art and putting yourself aside, and that means, like not worrying so much about what people think and not worrying so much about it being perfect, because maybe it's not just about you, it's about the art and the people who are waiting to hear this music and who will be moved or whose life is going to be transformed thanks to this music.
Yeah, a few good points there as well. And I think what you mentioned kind of at the end, one thing that reminds me of, a book where I read, we take things very personally, and, as art being something that's very close to us, we feel like if someone doesn't like our art, they don't like us as a person. And reading that, I remember that being like a light bulb moment and thinking, actually, yeah, that's got nothing to do with who I am as an individual. Like, you've created something and put it out there, then people's taste that they've developed over how many years have formed them to have an opinion on something that you've made, and that's got actually nothing to do with you being, a good enough individual or something. So I think all of that's really useful as well, and kind of separating yourself from your art and seeing yourself as maybe a channel for it. So thank you for that, Ariane. There's so many things that we've sort of gone through today, and it's all been really helpful and things that so many of us face on a daily basis. And before I let you go, we have a couple of audience questions, and I actually chose both of them from India Ferguson, because I thought they were both really good questions and things that people often deal with as well. So one of the questions she asked was, how do you get over the is it good enough to release feeling? Because you can just keep working on it and then kind of not really know when to let it go.
So here again, it's like you want to define good enough. Like, what is good enough? Like, what's good enough compared to what? And who decides what is good enough? So you want to kind of like put a limit to yourself, or at least define what good enough feels like to you. And realize, again, we go back to the perfectionism thing, and realize that it is the part of your brain that's trying to keep you safe. So this is like the reptilian part of your brain, who's so afraid of criticism and rejection. You want to kind of like overcome this part of your brain and bypass it, and realize, again, you're not here to be perfect. You're not trying to do something perfect. And the only way you're going to get better, and the only way you're going to gain momentum and create new opportunities for yourself, is when you release stuff. You're going to get further when you do that, rather than you keeping lots of tracks buried in your hard drive, locked up in a drawer, locked up in your studio, locked up in your flat, right? That's not helping anyone doing that. So again, like knowing when it's good enough, where it's kind of like, why am I making this music? And maybe this music needs to be heard by someone. Maybe I don't think it's the best work that I've done, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm willing to face possible, judgment from people who it will not resonate with. And that's fine. I know that there is this artist that I used to book when I was a booker. He's not like super famous, but he's extremely prolific. And I remember like checking Spotify like some months ago, and I was like, oh wow, like he's been releasing so much music. I think he released like 6 EPs in 2020, and about like 5 EPs like each year prior to that. And like it's an artist that I really enjoy his music. So when I listen to all of these EPs, I'm like, do I like every single track? No. Like, does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna take what I want, what I like. I'm gonna favorite the tracks I like, and I will never listen to the rest again, and that's totally fine. So I'm not thinking, oh, he's not a good producer. Like there's so much stuff there. I'm just thinking, wow, like this guy is so prolific. It's really admirable, actually, and good on him. And it's fine that I don't love all of his tracks. It doesn't matter, because someone else may like it. So again, it's like putting yourself out of the way, and just letting the art go and have its own life.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, on one thing just to kind of add to that is, which you mentioned as well, is that you get better as you release more, and you're not giving yourself the chance to get better if you just kind of stick on to that one project and kind of don't let it go. So I think, like you said, kind of good to get it out there and get out of your own way. So that's good. And the second question she asked, which I thought was also really good, was, how do we get over the block of making music for your fans or for others, as opposed to something that's really unique and something that's for you?
And here it also depends on your own objectives as a musician. Like, is your goal to do music to please your fans? And do your fans want you to make music for them, or Do they want to feel inspired and moved by your own unique expression? Because we talked about before how there's a sea of music out there. And for example, when I think of the mainstream electronic music scene, to be honest, I feel like it's full of artists who are trying to copy each other, who are trying to copy a formula. And these people just won't last. That's it. They won't last. And personally, for example, I find that this kind of music is extremely boring. It's soulless, and it doesn't really add any value. But that's only my own opinion anyway. So when you think about the artists that you admire the most, like, why do you admire them? And when you think of the artists that create the most impact, that created the most impact in the world, who have really created something that was lasting, like a lasting impression on people's minds and ears and hearts. These were artists that were completely unique, that were like fully self-expressed. So you can think of people like David Bowie or Lizzo, or in the electronic music scene, if you think of someone like Arca, who's so unique, or Sophie, all these people really created a sound that was like edgy and groundbreaking and really unique. They weren't trying to please anyone. It was really unique to them. So I also interviewed an artist called Max Cooper for my website, and I asked him what is the best piece of advice that you ever got. And he said he got it from Nils Fram's manager, who told him, you need to stop trying. So he took this as, okay, I need to stop worrying about what's cool and what resident advisor or Pitchfork think or what other people think. So what he did was like he committed to focus on what he enjoyed doing and what he wanted to do, without worrying so much about whether things would work or not. So without trying to please an audience. And what he found was that the more he focused on that, and the more honest he was with himself, then the better response he got. So because he says that other people could really hear and connect with this musical honesty.
I love that. That's such a great note to end on, I think, is, stop trying, which is lovely that, stop caring about others and trying to please everyone else, and do it for your love, and that will create the most authentic art. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Ariane. So that's been all really useful. So if there were artists that wanted to find you and kind of ask any questions about sort of their mind blocks or anything, where could they find you?
Yes, so definitely what we shared today, we have talked about, if it resonates with you, get in touch. I would love to hear from you. So you can find me on my website, olympiacoaching.com. I've got a couple of free resources on there to help you with your mindset, with things like confidence and other topics. And I also offer free consultations. So you can book a call with me with no commitment, and we can just talk about what's going on for you and how I can help. So yeah, I would love to hear from you.
Awesome. All right, that's great. Thank you, and yeah, everyone, get onto that if any of that sort of resonated with you. So thank you again, Ariane, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Xylo. It was really a pleasure, and thank you for the work that you do as well.
No worries.
Beautiful, important work.
Thank you. All right, see you later. Bye.
Bye-bye.